Hey, BassGeek here, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite types of fishing, and that's pitching and flipping. So when I talk about pitching, guys, I'm going to talk about primarily pitching to wood structure, laydowns, brush, that sort of thing. There's not a lot of grass in my lakes, so I'm not going to do a lot of pitching to grass unless I go, on a long trip. Really, the only thing that I would change if I was pitching to grass, maybe other than the size of the weight that I'm going to use, depending on the kind of mats or kind of grass that I'm going to be pitching to. But the primary thing I would change would be my line. I like fluorocarbon line when I'm pitching to wood over braid, simply because braid tends to be very abrasive when it's coming across wood, and it makes a very unnatural sound and can saw into the wood and get you hung up a little bit more. At least I feel like it. So I'll throw 20-pound, generally test fluorocarbon around most structure, and I've never really had any problems with that breaking off. So the rod and reel combo that I use, this is a 7/6 heavy action Bass Pro Shops Extreme that I bought years and years ago, and it's done a great job for me. I've got it teamed with a Lew's Speed Spool LFS. This is a 7:1-to-1 gear ratio. I like to really be able to get a good hook set. The 7/6 gives me great leverage, being a longer rod. I can get a little more distance out of my pitch and get those fish up and out of cover. Heavy cover a lot of times. So I do use a couple of different rods. I've got a 7-foot heavy halo. I like to use it around some docks, and I'll kind of skip some heavier baits, jigs, structure bugs, beaver style baits. Sometimes I'll use that. I actually used that in a tournament earlier this year, pitching to a lot of rock, and it worked well. It's a heavy rod. It's a 7-foot, but it doesn't have the backbone that this rod has. Now, as far as the weight, the hook, and the bobber stop, any old bobber stop will work. I use a black one. I just think it's less visible. Don't like the bright orange or bright colors. I use a Gamakatsu 3/0 worm hook. Now I do use their heavy cover hooks also. It just depends on how heavy the cover is and what size fish generally I think I'm going to be catching on today. Now you can see I've got a painted lead weight on. I do prefer tungsten. You get a better feel. It's a smaller, more compact weight, which I like. Smaller profile, I think, helps give a more natural look to the bait as it's falling through the cover. But I will use lead. If I feel like I'm going to be, losing a lot of hooks and sinkers, I'll resort to lead, or a lot of times I'll use lead as I'm fishing, as I'm practicing for a tournament, and use the tungsten during the tournament to get just that little bit of extra feel. Now guys, there's a lot of clear water that I fish, and so these are two of my favorite baits. You've seen me actually fish the Cinco, and yes, I will fish that with a bullet sinker when I'm fishing around a lot of laydowns and brush. Probably my favorite all time is what's right beside of it, and that is the Strike King structure bug. It's a rage tail structure bug. I like, a lot of times I'll go back and forth as far as the color goes. I tend to go back and forth between a watermelon, red flake, and a green pumpkin. And again, that really depends on the watercolor. If the watercolor starts to get dirty, we'll go with black and blue or black. I just keep colors real simple. And the same with the weights. As far as the weights go, it really, for me, it depends on how lethargic the fish are. If the fish are lethargic, a lot of times I'll back weight off so it's kind of fluttering down in front of them. If the water's clear, I like maybe a heavier weight so that they don't get a good look at it and you get a reaction bite out of them. Boat control is key. We want to be fishing into the wind, and one of the things we want to do, we don't want to just go barreling right up into the middle of this laydown. We want to make some casts right here to to the outside. So we know this is going to be deeper, and what we'll do is we'll feed a little bit of line, but we're going to watch our line intently to make sure that we don't have a jump or a tick in it. We're going to keep our rod tip low. We're going to feel our bait. We're going to reel down. We're going to lift it up and shake it, and we're going to follow that bait back down, keeping the boat pointed into the wind at all times. Okay, so once you work the outside of this lay down, you're going to turn yourself in to where the larger structure meets the water. So when you're making your flip, elbow comes up, rod tip goes down. You're not loading the rod tip, you're letting it swing out there. Nice and simple, nice and easy. You're looking for a nice quiet entry into the water. Then you're just going to work the lure back to you. Again, arm out, elbow high. Notice the angle that I have my rod turned. I'm not flipping it like this. I've got it nice and comfortable with a straight wrist, and I'm just pitching it out there, letting it drop, watching my line, and now I'm just giving it a few shakes. Climbed it across the limb there, reeling down, just a few shakes. I'm reeling it back in, and I'm hitting the next target. When you get good at this, you can very easily hit several targets very quick. So last but not least, let's talk about the hook set. You need a strong hook set, and to get a strong hook set, that means your rod tip really has to stay below that 10 o'clock position. You really have to use your rod in tandem with your reel as you're moving that bait. You don't want to get your rod tip too high, because you'll miss the bite, or you won't be able to get a good hook set. And really, it's not as much about driving the hook into the fish's mouth as it is about getting that fish turned and coming up out of the water. You're in so much heavy cover when you're pitching and flipping. You're finding some of the roughest, heaviest, thickest stuff that you can find, and you're throwing heavy line, heavy lures in the middle of it. And so you have to get that fish turned and come in the right direction. If you give them just a split second too long, they're going to get you wrapped up, and they're going to pop that hook out of their mouth every time. So it's key to get a strong hook set in order to get that fish coming up and out of that structure, out of that cover, out of that wood, that grass, and coming up and into the boat. So guys, that's my take on pitching. Like I always say, questions or comments in the comments, leave them in the comment sections. I'll get to them. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe, and you guys rock.